Hello. All right. Oh crap. Made a typo. Hmm. The... All right. I think that's all the setup that I need. What's up, everybody? This week I wanted to start by saying thank you very much. It was my birthday yesterday, and I got a lot of people telling me happy birthday, and it's very well appreciated. So we go to look at some comments. Yep. So, uh, first of all, this comment was very touching to me. Um, you know, you are not just in the progress of changing your life, but also my life and others' lives too. Uh, and yeah, I don't really think about it that way often. So, it's nice to get that, reminder that I'm always, working with all of you guys together, right? We're all growing together. That's the goal of, why we do this kind of stuff here. So really appreciate that. And SB, appreciate your happy birthday as well. Hey, favorite life coach. And Ria, I see all the support that you give me, and my family. So thank you so much. And this is something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs need to remember if you're ever gonna think about entrepreneurship, which I think I might talk a little bit about today. It's very important to understand that not everybody who consumes your content, not everybody who likes what you do or follow you is going to really tell you that they do, right? Until they one day do. So that's a very important thing that you want to remember. And even outside of the context of entrepreneurship, right? It's very important to remember that there are people who love us, that there are people who think of us, but they have no obligation to tell you all about it all the time, right? Now, on the flip side, are there gonna be people who hate you, and are there gonna be people who judge you? Of course. That's also the case regardless of whether you're an entrepreneur or not, right? Maybe we can talk a little bit about like public criticism in a little bit, but yes, uh, Boobwell, 4045. I really appreciate every time somebody comes out and says, I've been watching you for a long time. It makes all the journey really, really, extra worth it. It's worth it by itself, but it's really extra worth it. And Passion Twist, thank you so much. Ah, yep. So, what did I do for my birthday? Well, on yesterday was my birthday, but I don't normally have a day off on Tuesdays. My day off is usually Mondays. So on Monday, I had a nice hot pot lunch with my wife. There's this hot pot place in Northridge, California. Uh, they just have really really great hot pot. And after that, our we used to have a favorite cake place down in I think it's near Inglewood. But it's anyway, that cake place changed ownership, changed management, or changed the recipe or something. So the bakery schedule was kind of mixed. So we decided to look for some new bakeries around town, and then what do you know? The bakery right next to the hot pot place was turned out. had really great reviews. So I was like, all right, let's try that place for a change. And then so we went to the after hot pot, picked up some pieces of cake, and then had that little celebration that I turned into a YouTube video. So, um, had a nice chill day with my wife with some great food, and my dogs are in good health. Yesterday I trained some jujitsu, so in that case, like, what else could I want, right? Life is pretty good. But yeah, it's just been really nice to um, appreciate my life and just take some time to take it in. It's been really great. Oh yeah, and I want to show off. There's this gift my sister got me. My sister wrote me a card in this nice talisman. Um, it's meant for general well processing of everything going well, and this is a self-writing journal for the Diamond Sutra, which is a very important piece of Buddhist sutra, 금강바라밀다경. And this is the other one. Looks identical, but this is the Heart Sutra. So Heart Sutra again, I write down, and writing down the scripture is basically like a form of Buddhist practice because there's a lot of words in these sutras, and then by writing it one by one, you kind of remember it to yourself. It has that meditative, reflective quality. So there's that. Also, my parents got me something too. I want to show you as well. I'll bring it over. Ta-da! Yeah, it's like this meditation system. It's like basically a digital sound bowl. Um, so when you're meditating, you put each of these right next to you, and then they're in sync, and then it provides this binaural uh, singing bowl experience. That's kind of cool. So shout out to my parents. So they got me that. So yeah, overall, can't really ask for a better birthday. It's really been great. Okay, so that's been what's going on in my life. And now let's talk a little bit about something that I posted as a YouTube short yesterday, but also wanted to talk a little bit. I wanted to elaborate on that a little bit, and that's that's sort of a general observation that I've been having in as I'm coaching people, as I'm interacting with people in real life. Something that makes coaching well. So, what am I working on these days? Like in terms of my business, in terms of growing my presence, in terms of coaching other people. You know, actually, let's take a step back and talk about this. Oh, it's good coffee. Okay, I think entrepreneurship is generally a very important skill. And there's two contextual reasons why I think entrepreneurship is kind of important right now. Number one, job market is really hard for a lot of people, a lot of industries, right? So I think in finding really difficulty for procuring a job, it makes sense to start looking at some alternative ways of making money, and entrepreneurship tends to be a pretty popular choice, right? So I think that's one reason why entrepreneurship has gotten pretty is kind of important these days. And number two, uh, AI has really made the cost of execution really, really low. So even if you have the smallest idea, it's so easy to have an entire website about it, and then have all these in pieces that are moving, and making sure that things look proper. And as you're developing your website, um, you know, like if you have if you need to put some content, if you need to pull some, uh, if you need to make some posts, if you need to make some pictures, it's so easy to do that, right? With the AI generated images, and then it can give you content to post and everything, right? So these things make the cost of entrepreneurship compared to traditional entrepreneurship, it's ridiculously cheap. And on the other hand, other thing is, the it's really difficult to find a job. So these two factors, I think, play a big role in making entrepreneurship very attractive these days. And even when you don't really even when jobs are easy to find and such, it's generally good to be dependent on yourself to make ends meet. And when the economy is good, when the economy is booming, when there are a lot of jobs, we don't really think about this, but jobs are very dependent on the employer continuing to hire you, right? Because if you don't you know if you get unlucky, there's no telling when you're going to be fired. So I've been fired from my job before, and I don't know if this is the case in all the states, but in the United States, at least in the part that I live, a lot of companies at will hiring. So it's basically up to the employer to keep the employment going on or not, right? So some of the firings may be just like disciplinary. You might have trouble adjusting at work. Some of it might be a violation of company principles or company guidelines, which you might not necessarily agree with. But then again, if it comes to that, who has the upper hand? Generally the company has it, right? And also, even if you're doing excellent at work, you might be laid off. And the unfortunate thing is, layoffs are sometimes political. It's justified as, like, this sector needs changing, or like we're reorienting the business direction. But, a lot of the times, it is political. And I think the politics are politics at work, you kind of understand why it's needed once you work at a company that's like sufficiently big, and once you move up the ranks a little bit to see how the sausage is made, so to speak. But um it's one thing for it's one thing for a director, or like a VP or a SVP, to come in and then try to make a big change in the organization, and then try to make some political moves, influence their power, and then um, they get ousted because somebody loses the power dynamic of politics, and then they have to leave the company. So this happens to a lot, and that is like one individual, right? Like the VP leaving and like the director leaving, these are one individuals. But sometimes, as a consequence of these like political fights, entire departments get shut down or relocated, right? And that is a thing that generally happens a lot. Hey SV, how's it going? Yeah, my birthday was super chill. Trained some jujitsu, had some nice food, uh, got cakes. I got 3 cheesecakes, so can't really complain. Dogs are healthy, I'm healthy, everything's good. Yeah. So it's a good time to start thinking about entrepreneurship. And now, in terms of my life, how I'm approaching entrepreneurship is, obviously I coach people, right? So coaching people depends on clients, right? Because I have to have someone I talk to about life problems, and if no one is interested in solving their life problem, then I'm out of a job, right? So um but also, just because people have life problems that they would like to solve doesn't mean that they want to solve it with me, right? So there is that part where I need to do a little bit about of like client acquisition. I need to find clients who want to work with me, and I need to find people who have life problems to convince them to work with me. There is that part, and another part, ongoing part, is with the clients that I have. continuing to work with them, working on their life together. So this is generally the business model for a life coach, but also I can do whatever I want, right? So I make courses, and I sell courses, and I make programs and I sell programs, and like I do YouTube stuff like this. I coach people on Reddit. So these are some of the things that I do. And okay, so now as I'm doing these activities, I because the nature of my work is coaching people, I coach a lot of people. And something that I'm finding, especially in the last week, because I answered so many questions online, because I had a public AMA that I self-sponsored. Something that I came to see a lot is how young people experience the world. And I think entrepreneurship, I'm spending a little bit more time to talk about it today, because a lot of people who just graduated are finding it difficult to land a job that they want, or they're finding it difficult to, like, even if they do get a job, they have a hard time adjusting to a job, right? So after they get the job, they find themselves in imposter syndrome. Like, do I actually deserve to be here? I feel like I'm underqualified for everything. Or I'm at work, but I'm socially anxious, and like I don't enjoy the meetings that I'm in, and I'm always just I just want to go back home. I don't want to be at work, so on and so forth, right? So that's definitely something that I talked about a lot these days. But another thing that I've been generally noticing is people have a very difficult time. Yeah, job market is a joke these days. You're right. People have a very difficult time when the answers they're seeking isn't like immediately available, right? So, in the past, let's think about the past. Before AI, before smartphones, before computers. What was the difference between you knowing something and then you not knowing something, right? In the olden days, let's say the 1800s, there still was like a scholar, right? There were people who knew a lot of things. There were people who invested themselves in education, and they 5 stages of interviewing. um, I actually don't even know what the 5 stages of interviewing is, but yeah, when you know something, it's kind of obvious. I'm not asking, I'm not, trying to give you like a trick question. When you know something, you can answer a question with ease, right? So if you ask a physicist in the olden days, like what's the magnitude of acceleration in the gravity? They would say 9.8 meters per second squared, right? So they know those things. And if you ask a person who doesn't know, they just don't know. And they won't be able to answer that question unless they find out, they learn, and then they know, right? So in the olden days, there was this big gap between knowing and not knowing, which means most people spent their lives comfortably in the state of not knowing. When they don't know something, it wasn't this really big thing that, like was deeply uncomfortable. Now, at the same time, that doesn't mean that, like people had answers to everything in the past, right? So, what about these big questions about life? Like why do we live? Like why are we on this earth? And what's the point of life? These questions generally give people, existential fear, right? And in order to think about these things, you generally turned to religion, right? So how do you interface with God? What does your religion tell you in terms of what you should do with your life? If that works for you, if you find faith in it, and then you can get to following that religion, which what really is now you're able to answer those questions, to these deep questions that you used to have, right? What is the meaning of life? Well, according to my religion, it's this, and I have faith in the religion, therefore, like, I'm able to answer these questions. Now, in here, right? In 2026, when we look at our life right now, there's such a little difference between knowing and not knowing in the traditional sense. So you don't know, the magnitude of acceleration for gravity, but it's just one Google away, right? How do glasses work, right? How am I able to see clearly with glasses? In the past, you may wear glasses, but you may not know how optics work, right? But nowadays, it's just one Google away, right? And um, what's the Newton's, second law of what is it? Is the second law of thermodynamics Newton? I don't know. Maybe what's the second law of thermodynamics? Like in the past, you may know the words like oh, like blah blah blah, but you may not know what it actually means. But now with AI, it's like it can totally explain things to you, right? In a way that you understand. So that's where it can really make a big difference, right? So now you see that in the traditional sense, knowing and not knowing had a big gap. But nowadays, when you use the same standard and bring it to real life in 2026, you see that that gap is so small now. So you're kind of now comfortably living in a state of almost knowing everything. Whereas before, people were staying in the realm of comfortably not knowing. Why? Because in the past, not knowing was the norm. But now, knowing is the norm because everything is practically one Google away. So, when we use the traditional definition of knowing something, then we've gotten very smart. But here's my entire point that I'm trying to make today. The important thing is we know compared to the old definition of knowing, but do we truly know? Now, I understand true knowledge, truly knowing something is a, relative term. You're going to define it differently. But generally, are you able to recall it from memory? Can you explain it in multiple different ways to people who don't understand it? Can you actually apply it in, can you apply your knowledge into something else? These are sort of, markers of actual knowing something, right? And this is generally when knowledge becomes wisdom. And so wisdom accumulated over time becomes insight, right? In terms of that, we are so lacking. We have become a lot more lacking compared to before. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's too big of a general umbrella term, assumption. But it's important to understand. Yes, we are a lot smarter compared to before. But now, do we actually know a lot of things? Do we actually have it committed to our brain? Can we, invoke it on command? Can we apply that knowledge? Can we teach it? In that case, we generally have a very low aptitude. Because what's the point of like what's the point of teaching somebody in easier terms when they can also use AI, right? So we are kind of losing that touch of actually getting to know something instead of having to Google something and then being able to immediately answer something. Why this is important is now you are going to have questions that you really cannot answer, right? In the past, because you're so comfortable with not knowing, you were able to follow your curiosity and get to states of knowing with no emotional distress. But questions like, why are you depressed? Why are you sad? Why are you not confident in yourself? These are questions that you really can't Google, right? Hey, thanks, Joe. Yeah, I had a really nice birthday. Thanks for your nice appreciation. Yeah. So, in a world where all the answers are easily available to us, we have questions that we cannot answer by seeking outside. And we have to learn how to look at it from the inside, right? But what has also benefited a lot by Google and AI and things like that, it's the field of self-development. So when you look at YouTube, there's a lot of self-help content, there's a lot of motivational videos, and there's a lot of, even my channel is like that, right? I'm trying to give you pieces of life wisdom that you can apply to your life. But the thing is, when the person who is suffering is approaching it from the angle of like, I'm looking for answers, it's not really going to help you, right? Because yes, the Dharma is there for you to explore, but then it's contextual to your life. But what happens when you're not really interested in developing, like understanding where your suffering is coming from, and you just want the answer? So, for example, what's the French word for apple? Pomme, la pomme, right? And therefore, like, hey, I can say that. Like, I know the answer now, right? And you can move on with your day. But emotional, like deep emotional things, like, why do I procrastinate? Why don't I do the things that I really want to do? Why am I always stuck in this state in my life? Why can't I talk to my boss without looking, with looking at in their face and their eye? Um, why do I get so stressed when my mom talks to me? These are questions that can't really be answered, like what's the French word for, fish? Poisson, right? It's not really going to work like that. So in order for you to answer those questions, you have to have a deep interest in trying to figure out the answer yourself. But the thing is, we're so conditioned to finding answers outside of ourselves at the click of a button. And this gap in understanding, this gap in thinking about external knowledge and internal knowledge, we don't differentiate the two in general. So we keep trying to easily solve our mental health problems. And that's where I think a lot of the shortcomings of, current day motivational speaking, self-help content comes from, right? And so that's why my, business, my coaching practice isn't really all that profitable. It's not that like, attractive. People aren't like really, lining up to buy stuff from me because I always give you the hard way, right? I always ask you, I always encourage you to think about it more. But again, this is a hard sell for 2026. It's very difficult for me to kind of like tell people to explore within yourself. First of all, that's something that people feel like they don't need to pay somebody to tell themselves that, right? Like anybody can tell you, well, look within yourself, right? You don't need to pay me for a coaching session to hear that message, right? So that's why my business is kind of a hard sell. Number two, like when we pay for something, we expect some kind of a service in return, maybe something that makes our lives easier, right? But how my coaching sessions go is generally I challenge you a lot. And I invoke you to think by yourself a lot. And then as you explore your thoughts, we unhash and unravel the complicated thoughts so that they become simplified, right? A big part of my work is simplifying your thought processes by giving you concepts, by giving you formulas that you can apply to kind of untangle your situation. So when I'm like, people expect buying coaching services to people expect the coach to do a lion's share of the work and making you feel better, making you feel good. But I kind of turn it around and I kind of tell you to make your life better. I kind of rely on you to straighten out your thought processes. So it's kind of a hard sell, right? But I just can't run my business, I just can't run this coaching business any other way. And maybe I'll explain a little bit about why that is. If we do that, if I keep solving all of your problems for you, first of all, you become dependent on me. That's not a relationship that I want to be cultivating. I'm not trying to be like a religious leader, right? I don't want people to constantly, like, book sessions with me whenever they need to go through something. Of course, there is a phase where you do need to do that, right? Especially when we enter into a coaching relationships. Like, I'm practically here so that you can use me, right? So, what's the price for so I have a coaching product uh called the Sprint, right? So the Sprint is a 2-week program for $500, and it's unlimited sessions, right? I just give you, I just, for the next 2 weeks, I just can meet with you, and then we can talk about anything. So if you're trying to cram for an exam and you're having a really difficult time focusing, like, you hit me up anytime you feel like you're getting distracted, and then we can talk about it, and help you get on track, right? So there are those instances where I do need to build you up, but ultimately I don't want to build you up to a point of constant dependence. I want to build you up so that you can be your own person, right? I want to build you up so that you can fly on your own. I don't want to be a crutch for you, right? Because that would suck. Like, I've cultivated a relationship where you're dependent on me. I don't want to do that. But, you know, ultimately, that kind of independence, that kind of, self-thinking, that kind of self-agency is something that you have to foster, that you have to grow, and growth is hard. It's hard even for me too, right? So that's why coaching with me is very challenging. It's very hard, but um, you know, so far in my 4 years of business practice, everyone I have worked with to completion has said, like, has genuinely changed my life, and that is what I'm really looking for in a coaching relationship, right? I'm not really looking to, make you feel better every time you talk to me. That's more of somebody else's job, but not me. So, if you take one thing away from me um, today, the most important thing for you, I think, is to understand that there's a difference between knowing something and not knowing something when you take away your smartphone. Know your life. Become interested in yourself. Know yourself. Figure things out that are within you. Why am I stressed? Why am I angry? These things are just genuinely helpful to uncover and understand from yourself. But in order to do that, you need a deep, vested interest in yourself, right? Be interested in yourself. That's sort of the key theme that I wanted to go for today. All right. So, um, the other. So now let's talk a little bit about my what I've been talking. Actually, before that, wanted to show off something. Okay, so the website has changed. My website here.julylifecoach.com has changed. Uh, the point of here is to be like a one-stop portal for all of the content that I talk about, right? So the most important thing here is, like, I give you kind of a bit of a different journey you can start, but you can do a lot of self-discovery tools like mental toughness test and the submodality quiz and the social anxiety patterns, reaction mirror, perception map. These are all interactive experiences that I have created for you. And the ones that I really want to highlight are, it's in the start here section, but the mental toughness section and the NLP submodality quiz. These two, I think, are like I just if you're watching this and you're overwhelmed by the number of options that you have in the Here website, the most important thing is start with those two, because these two help you understand where you are at in terms of, self-development, right? You want to cultivate, you want to develop yourself in a certain direction, right? And in order to do that, you have to know where you're at, so that, suppose, you're when you take the mental toughness test, it's quite long, but that's because it's very comprehensive. At the end, you get to see your results. You get to see where you're at, in terms of a relative score. Why this is important? If your score is pretty high across all the channels, you can expect that development is going to be, of course, it will be challenging for you too, but you probably have a little bit of mental bandwidth to go in and invite yourself for a bit more challenge. Maybe, and I'll tell you what I mean by the challenges, but let's go with this for now. Like, when you take the resilience quiz, you'll be able to assess, like, oh, how much bandwidth I can take on with my personal challenges, with my personal practices. But suppose you have high aspirations for yourself. I need to be somebody who's really good at this stuff. I need to be like really good. I can't suck. But turns out your resilience score is really low. In this case, challenging yourself is not the thing to be doing, right? Understanding yourself and giving yourself the opportunity to do something at the pace that you can, it's time for that. It's not the time to go, 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 right? So, what if you have high expectations of yourself but low resilience? That's the case that we're trying to avoid, right? If you have high expectations and you have high resilience, good. I think that's good for you. If you have low expectations about yourself but also low resilience, then I think that's also good, right? But the important thing is, we need to know where your resilience is at in order for you to think about how much to challenge yourself, how much you're going to take on for your life. And the NLP submodality quiz is very important because it helps you understand how you primarily process the world. Are you a visual oriented person? Are you an audio oriented person? Are you a kinesthetic person? These help you understand how you like to process information from the outside world, right? And so as you're learning more about yourself, the more you focus on your primary preferred sense, the easier your path is going to be, right? Easier your development path is going to be. Okay, so that's what I would like for you to get started with. But I need to take a quick bio break. I'll be right back. Okay, now let's talk about the important part, what I call practice. I want to give you a guide to the practice kit, but also what I mean by practice. What I mean by practice is a set of humanly possible voluntary challenges. When you practice using these three standards, you start growing. You know how when you develop muscle, you need the muscles to be strained so that they can tear you, they can have micro damage, and then with your fiber and protein intake, the muscles repair and then they grow bigger, right? So, in order for you to grow mentally, you do things. But if you do two easy things, right? Meditate for 5 seconds. Sure, you succeeded, but it's too easy and you don't grow. If it's too hard, like meditate for 2 hours, then you're going to feel defeated because you're never going to be able to do it. The important thing is finding a balance between too hard and too easy, and that is what I really mean by humanly possible challenge. Now, the other thing is voluntary. If I am meditating because I want to, it's very different from somebody saying you have to meditate or I'm gonna not feed you. So, that is what is meant by voluntary, humanly possible challenge, right? So, the voluntary, humanly possible challenges that I advise you to do in the Buddhist practice guide is waking up at 5 a.m., 108 bows, meditation. But the thing is, chances are, it may be too difficult for you. It may be too challenging for you to wake up at 5 a.m. every day. It may be too difficult for you to, or like physically unfeasible for you to do 108 bows. You may have a, specific mental condition that makes meditation a little bit risky for you. So in that case, what's the solution? Also, just because you wake up at 5, just because you wake up at 108, just because you do meditate, right? Wake up at 108, just because you do 108 bows, it doesn't mean that you are going to learn from it. It doesn't mean that you are going to take something away from it. Because, you can do 108 bows and just treat it like a morning exercise, right? If you're not doing the introspection, if you're not learning, if you're not trying to seek what's underneath that, underneath all of your karma so that you can change it, then it just becomes an exercise in, squats. It just becomes an exercise in sitting still. That's not what we're going for here, right? So the practice kit is about what do we need to be doing here when we do the when we do the Buddhist practices, when we do the waking up at 5, when we do the 180 bows, when we do the meditations, what is the brain part, what is the mind part that we need to be using? That is what the practice kit is supposed to develop, right? That's why this is the intention behind my creation of the practice kit. So the practice kit is a $37, program that you can purchase. But basically, these are quests, these are practices that you do, right? Every one of these activities are meant to be a bit of a challenge for you. They're meant to take a little bit of time and focus from your day. And what I'm asking you to do in all of these is explore yourself. Let yourself be expressed. So let me start over. How do you explore yourself? One method is to go down deeper and deeper and deeper and keep finding, right? And the best example of this is, suppose I asked you, why are you socially anxious? That's a very loaded question, right? So for you to answer that, you need to think about, why am I socially anxious? And then you need to keep reasoning with yourself, like, is this why? No, that's not why. But if that's not why, and then why is it? Is it this? No, this isn't why. Okay, then in that case, what is it? This is introspective process is a time-consuming one, right? And also, it is a mentally intensive, you know, endeavor. And if you're just starting out in self development, you might not have that mental bandwidth. You might not have that cultivated, focus to keep diving into yourself. So, what's the alternative to actually diving down within yourself? It's by self expression. So that's why when you look at these prompts are actually very simple prompts. Why were you named your name? What time of the day do you wake up? Who do you watch on YouTube? What's something about your hometown that you appreciate? What was your favorite play growing up? Why was your favorite? So these are very simple questions that you can be answering, right? But why this is important is I'm not asking you so that you can, answer it with one line and then move on with your day. When you say something, when you say the answer to something, you can always stop. But also, you can always go more, right? Why were you named your name? For example, my name is Billy, and I'm named my name obviously because my parents named it that way. I could stop there. But what I'm asking you to do in the heart opening exercise is every time you feel like you're done, right? Every time you feel like you're done talking, you just talk. You ask yourself to express a little bit more. I'm named my name because my parents named me. But why did they name me Billy? Well, specifically, they didn't name me Billy. They named me William. So I'm supposed to be William Soul. But I'm the youngest of my family, and I always see myself as a small boy. And to Billy, when he was really young, it felt like William was too big of a name. So that's why I chose. My parents chose William, but that's why I chose Billy. So that's where that comes from, right? Okay, I feel like I'm done. But I'm asking you to open your heart one more time. You feel like you're done? Tell me a little bit more. Okay, well, the thing is, the question is a starting point. It doesn't have to consistently talk about this topic. I can move on. So, yes, so my name is named Billy. But what's interesting is, when you look at the speech recognition that's working right now, it's picking up Billy pretty well, right? So, I think I'm generally good at saying my name, Billy. But for some reason, when I go to a restaurant or like when I go to a food place to make a pickup order, they always ask me my name. And I say, Billy. But I don't know why. Maybe it's the ambient noise in the background, or like people just or don't hear me well, or I'm saying it wrong. But I've gotten so many variations of my name. I've gotten Dewey, which is short for Dwight. I've gotten Pilly, Pilly. Like I have, and I've gotten Belly, like belly, like pork belly. So I've gotten so many variations of my name. It's ridiculous. And so I actually started spelling out my name, right? Billy, Billy. And you know what the kicker is? Sometimes people get the name wrong even if I spell it. It's crazy. So my wife has never had this problem. Well, actually, her name is Claire, and it's Claire with an E, but a lot of the times people write it Claire without a E. So that sometimes happens. But Billy, I've gotten so many variations of it. Okay, so now I went one more time, right? So as I am continuously sharing more about self, it's like I am doing the exploration, but I'm letting my stories do the self exploration. And here's where the cool thing happens. You come back tomorrow to another prompt, and then you come back tomorrow to another prompt, and then you come back tomorrow to do another prompt. And guess what's gonna happen? Because you've shared so many things with yourself, now the stories are going to start interweaving with each other. And as you do this exercise over and over, you're gonna find that you think about certain stories of your life a lot. And why is that? And every time you think about that story, you're gonna be approaching it from a slightly different angle because the prompts are different, right? So that's why the heart opening exercise is so important. It's a very meditative practice if you can approach it in the way that I have intended, which is take the experience, take the prompt, answer it, but don't just stop at answering the question. Every time you feel like you're done, push your heart out a little bit more. And their encouragement is do it at least 3 times, right? So if you're new to this and haven't done these kind of reflective exercises, these will take up a lot of your time. So they are going to be voluntary, humanly possible challenges, right? And with the attention span of the modern people these days, it's gonna be really hard to constantly think about yourself for the span of an hour or something. So I think it's going to be a meaningful, good exercise. Now, when you're done with the heart opening, then you can move on to the listening lens, because heart opening develops the sensibility of making you recognize how you feel. With that, you move on to the listening lens and the side effect quest, because if you move on to the listening lens and the side effect quest without heart opening, they're going to be overwhelming, right? They're going to be stressful. So, like, energy behind the word. Pick one person you interact with today. What did they talk about the most? Listen to someone tell a story today. Don't think about what you'll say back. But what if somebody says something that's super triggering to you? What if somebody says something that you don't agree with? These are things that are going to be like very stressful if you don't know how to navigate your insights. If you don't know how to stay calm while exploring all the things that are happening in your mind, it's going to be very difficult, and it's not going to fulfill the intended purpose that I had as I was creating the listening lens, right? Same with side effect quest. Um, social, side effect quest is like name quest. Find out why people are named that way. The recipe quest, you know, like recipe with the story attached. So ask someone older than you to teach a dish they're proud of, get the recipe, and try cooking it. So like a lot the side effect quests are a lot of these actual real life activities. But then again, if your real life activities are stress inducing to you, which some of them are designed to be, you're gonna have a bad time. And I know I like challenging people, but I didn't make this so that you can have a bad time, right? So that's how you use the practice kit. And for all the intentions behind everything, you can learn the concepts behind why you have these things, why I made this, and the purpose behind this. You can check out all of that. So that's how you use the practice kit. Practice kit is available for your purchase at $37. It is going to be the best thing that it's a very unique product. Nothing like this exists in the market in this room of self-development, because it's so specific to my experience of working with people with these conditions, right? So check out the practice kit and at shop.julylifecoach.com, and I'll put a link in the descriptions below as well. So, but this is how you use it. Okay. Uh, that was the overall guide, and now need to talk about something. Okay, so I run ads on Reddit, right? And in ads, I want to briefly tell you something about ads. The general impression is that once you start running ads, you're gonna be making a lot of money, but that could not be further from the truth. Ads are really hard, because number one, people have resistance to ads. Number two, people have a lot of ad blockers. And number three, ads cost you money. So if I'm making YouTube videos like this, they're free. So if somebody buys the practice kit today, then good. It's like I spent $0, but then I made money, right? It's nice. But with ads, even if you don't buy, I spent money, right? And even if you buy something, I don't get the full profit from it because I put some amount of money in the marketing ads, right? So ads does one thing really well: reach a lot of people. But outside of that, it's not an easy thing to figure out. So because of that, as I'm running ads on Reddit, my entire thing is having conversations with people, right? And my entire thing is having being easily coaching people. But I do get a lot of flack. And I wanted to talk about one specific thing that I've been catching some flack with. Uh, okay. So I have a course that I sell, right? And it's called Coach and Reddit. So I coach people on Reddit, and therefore I think it's a good idea. I like it when experts and people who are good at stuff come on Reddit and talk about their expertise. I find that deeply interesting. I want to see more of that in the world. Also, I built my business on Reddit, therefore I think it just makes sense for entrepreneurs to be on Reddit, and so I want to give them my know-how. I want to tell people how to approach coaching people on Reddit so that they can benefit from it like I did, right? So, uh, this is the course that I'm selling. And now, how do I set up the ads? Well, at first, I said, here's the course, buy this. The thing is, uh, it's very difficult to trust somebody who just comes up to you and says, buy this, right? If you're watching this video, it's probably because you have a nurtured relationship with me and you care about the things that I say. But if you see me for the first time and I say, this live has been going on for like 57 minutes, if I'm like, hey, watch this 57-minute video, chances are you're not gonna watch it. Why? Because who the fuck are you, right? Like, I don't know what you're gonna tell me. So, turns out I ran the ad of like, hey, I have this really great thing, buy this. It's a hard sell. First of all, anybody can claim that what they have is good, right? So why should people, why should people buy from me? So that's the gap that I have diagnosed. And so now what I'm doing is I'm running an ad that tells people like why you should care. And I have these I have these posts like, how much time do I have to spend here to get clients? This is something that this is a question that I get a lot from people who follow my program, right? And another thing is like how to coach with even the sparsest of details without back and forth. So as you can probably tell, coaching relies a lot of questioning and answering. But on Reddit, I'm not guaranteed that the people are going to answer my questions, right? So I need a way to coach people without the back and forth, and I have a system for that. And this particular thing is life coaches have a bad reputation on the internet, and you can change that, right? So this one is like generally a value giving, and some foreign language people who are telling me that it's bullshit, but that's okay. I know that people generally hate coaches on Reddit. And this one is actually surprisingly, for an ad, it's like 11 upvotes. It's like, whoa, that's kind of cool because people generally downvote everything that they see when it's sponsored. But this turns out this is a pretty good tip, right? So this is good. Now, this is a post that gets a lot of flack. So I say life coaches have a bad reputation on the internet. You can change that. And so I'm asking coaches, especially in the market of what I'm selling, to be more interested in coaching people here instead of running your Facebook group, instead of like running your Instagram account and trying to be popular there. I'm not knocking those as bad things to do, but what I'm saying is like a lot of people, a lot of life coaches have a lot of shame. They have trouble coming out to the world as life coaches because they know how much the world thinks it's a scam. So you can change that by being an actual good coach on the internet, right? That's my entire spiel. And then people, you know, criticize, right? What a load of utter bollocks. And brother, I love the way you threw a BS formula to make it look like it's legit stuff. That's because it's mostly a scam. Nice random formula you pulled out of your ass, right? So the thing is, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be able to deal with these. But I don't mean deal with it by blocking and then, being angry at it and like, dismissing them. The important thing is, the more these kinds of comments eat up, my mental health, the worse it's going to be, right? So I just need to be able to reason through these criticisms. So when they say it's a BS formula, so the formula that they're referring to is max of benefit is max of self-benefit and max of other benefit, right? So I agree. This seems like a BS formula. But I have it like this because people have short attention spans, right? And when people have short attention spans, I could write an entire wall of text of why I, blah, blah, blah. But that's not going to be meaningful in terms of, ad engagement, which is what I'm trying to cultivate with this paid ad program, right? So I have to come up with a way to say something that's catchy, and I need to be able to communicate the primary point that I'm trying to make. When benefiting yourself also benefits others, that's the greatest benefit. But at the same time, I do agree, this totally seems like a non-formula, right? So I'm able to acknowledge that, right? I concede that this is not the best use of a formula, but hey, I can still do it. That's because this is mostly a scam. And you know what? I agree that, life coaches can seem very scammy. There's a lot of room for variance in coaching. Coaching is an unregulated field. Coaches cross over with alternative medicine population. And also, any field can have its share of bad faith agents, but coaching also has some bad faith agents. So it's very unclear that what life coaching is. So that I use this as an opportunity to talk about that, right? And same with like, again, random formula I pulled out of my ass. So I understand that I never really explained it, right? But I want people to see this. Now the people are going to read the comments if they want, right? So in here I can afford to elaborate. So I explain what I'm trying to achieve with this formula, right? So like, let's use this opportunity to elaborate on my message. Many people seek benefit themselves. But if everybody is benefiting only themselves, it makes the world a drier and more cutthroat place. So it leads to an interest in benefiting other people. But if people only benefit other people, they burn out, they become a martyr, and they become, self-sacrificing. People always think between extremes, right? And what I'm saying is, well, what if you can benefit yourself and that also happens to benefit other people? This is the most optimal way of living in society, right? So that is what I'm trying to convey with the max benefit formula. But again, it's not explicitly clear just by looking at the formula. It totally looks like BS, right? But I have to compromise for visual clarity. So I need to be able to have these kinds of, like level-headed, calm discussions when things get riled up, when I get criticized. And that generally makes it easier for you to have an online business, right? And that's ultimately, I think, a skill that everybody wants to develop. Like in an interview situation, you might be grilled, right? In a team meeting, you might be grilled because of your opinions about a project, right? But the more you can, foster this kind of like calm demeanor of like, yeah, but here's why I think that, the generally better chances you'll have at, clarifying confusion and really just letting other people be angry, and then the rest will kind of unfold by themselves. All right. So, oh, there goes my hour. That's the live stream for today. The primary key point that I would like for you to remember from today's session is be interested in yourself. Have a vested interest in self-development. Learn more about yourself, right? And to help you with that, use the practice kit. All right, that's a stream for today. Thanks for joining in. And if you're watching this on VOD, thank you so much for watching, supporting my channel. Thank you so much for wishing me a happy birthday. I love you guys. And I'll see you in the next video or next week in the live stream.